Hi, I'm Joe, and I'm from the Spartanburg Buddhist Center, and today I'm going to be talking with you about the foundations of Buddhism and a little bit about meditation. But before we get into anything, I want to give you the chance to just settle down. So we're going to get comfortable in whatever seat or chair or cushion, wherever you are. Get comfortable. You can go ahead and close your eyes, and we're just going to sit in silence for a couple minutes and get ourselves grounded into the present. So we let the sound of the bell bring us back. One of the essential themes of Buddhism is meditation. And so what you just did was a very brief period of meditation. You were just asked to sit in silence. For some of you, it may have been difficult. It might have felt like an hour. It might have felt like 30 minutes. For others, it may have been very simple. For others, it may have been boring. And I understand. So later, we're going to do a short guided meditation. But first, we're going to get into what is Buddhism. And you might have seen things or heard things or seen a movie or a video, who knows? And there's a lot of different Buddhisms. What I'm going to be talking about is from my experience, and that is with the tradition called Theravada. So it's originally the southern school of Buddhism. It originated in India at the time of the Buddha. It now flourishes in parts of Southeast Asia and all over the world. So right here in Spartanburg, we have a few Cambodian and Laotian temples. And what I'm going to be telling you about is some general basic beliefs and practices that are throughout almost all Buddhist traditions. And these are really universal truths that you can learn and practice for yourself. One of the most powerful tools that the Buddha taught was the tool of skeptical inquiry. So the Buddha didn't want people to just believe things because he said it, or because some other wise person said it, or because it had been written in scriptures thousands of years ago, or because that's what your great-grandparents told you, or your teacher, or somebody else. He wanted you to learn for yourself. He encouraged you to test things, to figure out for yourself. And once you verify that it's true in your practice, then you believe that. Then you practice that. Now, before he became enlightened, when he was Prince Siddhartha, he was plagued by things that were unpleasant. Sickness, old age, and death. And when he saw those things for himself, he was motivated to find the truth, to find a way to overcome those things and to be comfortable with those things and to accept those things. So what the Buddha noticed is that in everything that exists, everything, in this human body, in this device that you're watching this on, in all animals, in all plants, everything, that there's three uniting factors. There's three factors of everything that's come into existence. The first one is called anicca. This is a Pali word. Pali is a language that's similar to Sanskrit. Now, the Buddhist scriptures weren't originally written down. They were transmitted orally through repetition of this language, and this is how they were preserved until they were written down. So anicca. Anicca is pointing to the transient nature of all things. So you take your device, your phone. It's plastic, it's metal, it's glass, and it's powered with electricity. Now all those conditions are coming together and making a phone. Is that phone going to last for 20 years? Maybe, if you take extra good care of it. But more than likely, less than 5 years, you'll have another one. The phone you have right now may break, may crack, become outdated, and you simply may not want it anymore. And these aspects of this fleeting existence, just for this telephone, for example, it's a congregation of elements meeting together, making a phone. It lasts for a while, and then at some point it'll be recycled. It'll turn into something else. In the same way, this human body that you have, it comes into existence, it lasts for a while, maybe short, maybe long, we don't know. And then at some points it's recycled, not unlike the phone. So there's a theme that everything is temporary. It's fleeting. And the Buddha wanted to point to that very specifically because a lot of our problems are coming from when we disagree, or we get upset, or we have an expectation that something will last a long, long time. It can be a material thing, like a phone. It can be a feeling, like happiness, love, hate, indifference. All these things, they have a lifespan. They come into existence, they stay there for a while, and then they go. So there's 3 different phases of this. And in the same way, there's 3 different marks or factors to the existence of all things. Anicca, transitory, fleeting, impermanent. The next factor is dukkha. And dukkha is what a lot of us experience every day. Anytime we don't get what we want, anytime we have any sort of pain, discomfort, stress, annoyance. This is dukkha. Sometimes dukkha is translated as stress, sometimes classically it's translated as suffering. So what the Buddha noticed inherent in all things was an element of suffering. Now, if you're looking at a cup or a mug or a spoon or something, and you look at it, you say, I don't see suffering. No, you don't. But inside all these things, when our human body has contact with it, our body and mind, we bring with it an element. And that element can be happiness, neutrality, or unhappiness. So when the Buddha speaks about dukkha, or stress, or suffering, this is due to one of these natures of change. But more importantly, our relationship to this change. So when we think about impermanence and stress, these can be things that are threatening to us, they can be things that are scary, but they can also be things that help us grow, things that help us learn, and things that help us become more resilient. For example, when you're online shopping and you click and you buy and you order, you get a little bit of happiness. Think, this is this product that could get here in a couple days. This product is going to make me happy. 2 days pass. Look at the door, there's a box. You open the box, broken. Inside broken. You were shipped something broken. Oh no, I'm unhappy. Why? Now I have to return it. It's broken. So already this one thing that was supposed to make you happy, that was supposed to help you, it's already causing you stress. Now had it arrived in perfect condition, we can find suffering that way too. Here it is, at your door. Open up, perfect condition. Then you realize, I didn't really need this. I don't want this now. I want something else. That is suffering. That is stressful. Even if it's just the most tiny thing as, disappointment with an object, disappointment with a material object. But in the same way, it goes all the way up to the stories of life and death. And this is what the Buddha was concerned with. So he saw these characteristics present in everything. And he didn't look around and see everything as, oh no, this is impermanent and suffering. Oh, this is impermanent and suffering. No, he saw that there was the potential, when you add together your mental clinging to these objects, that then there was stress and suffering. Then there was adversity. Then there was disliking the impermanence. And that's what the Buddha was pointing to when he's talking about these 3 marks of existence. Anicca, dukkha. And now the next one is called Anata. Anata. And that means not self, non-personal, impersonal, not you. And this is a concept that has been very confusing for a lot of people. And one of the reasons why is because the Buddha spoke in a way that instead of pointing exactly to what something was and saying, this is it, this is it, this is it, the Buddha would say, this is what it isn't. Or that's what it's not. Look at what it's not. So when the Buddha taught the reflections, sitting, meditation, oftentimes people would think, well, what am I? Why am I here? And the Buddha, after his enlightenment, he was full completely. He had no more craving, no more clinging, no more greed, no more desire, no anger, no delusion, no stupidity. And there's a saying that as the Buddha and some monks were walking, that there was a forest, and the Buddha picked up a handful of leaves. And the Buddha asked them, what is more, this handful of leaves or the leaves on the entire forest floor? And of course they answered, the leaves on the entire forest floor. They're much more than the leaves in your hand. And the Buddha agreed, yes. And he said, and in the same way, the knowledge and the insight that I've gained through my enlightenment is like the leaves on the forest floor. It's vast and many. It's huge. It's all-encompassing. But this handful of leaves, this small handful of leaves, is all that you need. All that you need to overcome greed, anger, and delusion. That's it. And so that's what we want to focus on. And when we're dealing with Anata, with not self, or impersonal, there's an impersonal nature. Now, as humans, our egos want to tell us that we are very much the center of the universe, and our narrative and our story and our lives are very important, and that, this is it. But the Buddha reminded his monks and his nuns and laymen and lay women constantly what they were not. Because a lot of time we spend on what we are not. So if you take into account the things that you identify with as you, my name, my job, your student, my class, my teachers, the teams I belong to, the religion I identify with, male, female, tall, short, all these different things. And the Buddha said, no, that isn't you. Those are just things. They're just labels. And they're going to change. And they're going to be potentially a source of stress. If you just think about your job, your status, your place in the world, your future, your name, where you came from, all these things that you identify with as you. What is in them that is worth identifying with? What do you want to identify with? And the Buddha saw that many people wanted to identify with what family they came from, what career they had, the things that they ate, the things that they did, the things that they saw, the things that they remembered, and say, this is me, this is mine. And right then and there, that is where a lot of this dukkha happens, in saying, this is me, This is mine and I. The Buddha used these three tools of anicca, dukkha, and anatta to show people that there's something more. Not only are you not your identification, you're not your identification. Even if you take out your ID card, you look at it, hold it up next to you. Which one is you? So there could be a picture from 10 years ago, 5 years ago, and then there's you, this physical body. And then if we even go further, say, well, what is it? What is it that makes you you? And that what is this you-ness that is so different from him or her, or that tree, or that mosquito, or that ant, or that dog? What is it that's so different? If you want to look at it scientifically and say, oh, well, actually, we're all not that different. We're carbon-based life forms. And that's great. Still, deeper, more insight into what you are, just from a physical bodily form. What are you? And the Buddha used these reflections again and again to show people that they were focusing on a lot of the wrong things. They were focusing a lot about, and the same applies today as it was 2,500 years ago. People were focusing on status. They were focusing on accumulating things, accumulating money, accumulating popularity, accumulating happiness, accumulating friends, influence, power, all these things. And the Buddha saw that, and he saw people struggling and struggling. And yet, the kings, the beggars, they all had one thing in common, is that they both died. They all died at some point. So what do we do from now until then? What do we do when we get sick? What do we do when we get old? And these are some of the practices that help us understand and deal with that in ourselves and in other people. Many of you might be familiar with the Buddha's teachings on the Four Noble Truths. The truth of suffering, that there is pain, there is stress, and a lot of times this can be carelessly translated as life is suffering. And that's one of there's a lot of things about Buddhism that you may have heard, and you may think, oh yeah, that's what it is. But that's not really what the Buddha said, and that's not what Buddhists as a whole believe. So a lot of people say, oh, Buddhists are negative. They think life is just suffering. No. There is suffering. There can be suffering. And a lot of times this suffering, we find out, is optional. You can opt out of it. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to be stressed out about everything. And this is what the Buddha is, has devoted his life to, is this reprogramming of the mind. And one of the ways he did that was through the Four Noble Truths. So suffering, its cause, its cessation, and the path to cessation. So suffering, where does it come from? How do I get rid of it? And then the path to getting rid of it. So the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path are something that you're going to come across in almost all forms of Buddhism. These things are going to be there. And so you can look up that on your own. See what you think about it. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of the moral and ethical trainings within Buddhism. So the Buddha had a lot of lists. So we just did the three characteristics of existence. We talk about the Four Noble Truths briefly, and then we spoke about the Noble Eightfold Path. So that was a group of 3, a group of 4, and a group of 8. Now we're going to talk about a group of 5. And this is one of the things that all religions have, is some basic guidelines of how to live. And these are not really anything different than a lot of other traditions. They are worded differently, and they're going to point to the antithesis of these rules, these guidelines. They're called the Five Precepts. And again, these are also going to be in a lot of different types of Buddhism. Vajrayana, Mahayana, Theravada, Hinayana, Zen, Tibetan, Chan, all these different types of Buddhism. And the Five Precepts are basically a way to refine your behavior. Yes, we have to work on ourselves. We have to work on ourselves. Because there's this thing called karma, we have to work on ourselves. And so the Buddha had a baseline, and this is for all the lay followers of Buddhism, so not the monks and nuns. The monks and nuns are held to a higher code of ethics. But for most everybody else, just follow these 5. And you'll see in these 5, sometimes it gets really difficult. So the first one, the first precept, it translates very literally as, I refrain from taking away the breath of another being. And so it's translated as, I refrain from killing. Simple enough. Now, in Buddhism, there is a large emphasis on compassion and loving kindness and non-killing. So that's that first precept. Don't kill anything. And this is very clear at first. Don't take the breath away from another being. And this applies to any animal. Any animal, from an ant all the way up to an elephant. And what it's pointing to is loving kindness. It's pointing to respect for life. First, by stopping the killing. And then further, by having compassion and love for other beings. But this is the base. This is the base of where you start. You first start by not killing it. And that's an expression. That's an expression of safety. That's an expression of respect. The next precept is to refrain from taking what's not given. And again, you look at the phrasing and you can see, I don't want to take anything that isn't given to me. So the Buddha didn't say, don't steal anything, which is the spirit, is not to take anything that wasn't given. And so again, this points to something bigger. So I don't want to steal anything. I don't want to take anything that isn't mine or wasn't given. And to push it further, what do I want to do? I want to give. I want to be generous. So, non-killing, non-stealing. The third precept deals with sexuality. And the Buddha said to refrain from any sexual misconduct. Refrain from any harmful practices in regards to your sexuality. So this is what you have to do. You have to be responsible. Responsible and harmless in your sexual behavior. And again, this is the teaching for all the people. So for the monks and the nuns, they refrain from sex completely. But for everyone else, you have to have a responsibility. You have to be harmless. The fourth precept, and this is one that a lot of people have a lot of trouble with because it's difficult. It's difficult, especially in polite society. It's difficult to refrain from telling lies. That's the fourth precept. Refrain from telling non-truths. And what is it pointing to? Telling the truth. And a lot of times you'll see sayings, especially from ancient India and Eastern tradition, is that if you can't tell the truth, if you can't say something nice, just be silent. And for some people, that's very difficult. For some people, telling a lie can be very easy. Telling the truth can be difficult, uncomfortable, ugly sometimes. But this is a standard that the Buddha set for people. And it's difficult to live up to. And so within Buddhism, this is something that you keep doing. And when you miss the mark, when you're not able to follow them all the time, that's okay. You keep trying. You keep trying. So refrain from telling lies. What does that point to? Tell the truth. The fifth precept deals with intoxicants. So refrain from taking intoxicants that cause you to lose your mindfulness. What does this mean? You could simply say, and it's interpreted a lot of times as don't do drugs, don't drink alcohol. But what it's also pointing at is intoxication within the mind. You can be intoxicated by food and drink. It doesn't have to be a drug, it doesn't have to be alcohol. It could be anything that becomes obsessive to where you lose your mindfulness, lose your awareness. That's something you always want to keep with you. You always want to have on hand. And by practicing these 5 precepts, non-killing, non-stealing, sexual responsibility, non-lying, and keeping your awareness. So staying away from things that cause heedlessness. Very important. Now, those are some of the things that the Buddha implored people to practice. So once you start there, you have a basis. Then you add meditation to that, you add reflection, you add study, you add insight, and now we're really cooking. So, the 5 precepts, 4 noble truths, the 3 marks of existence. Stopping, breathing. Now these 5 precepts aren't always natural. It might not always be easy. And sometimes when you get kind of slack on one, another comes up with it. You lie about stealing. You lie about drinking. You lie about something. But you keep trying. You keep trying. In the same way with meditation, in the beginning, it might not be easy, but you keep trying. All right. So again, I want you to sit back. If you're on a cushion or in a chair, we're going to do a short guided meditation. If you're laying down, stand up, have a seat. I don't want you to fall asleep. So some important things about the posture is we want to keep the back as straight as we can. We want to keep, if you're sitting in a chair, your feet are on the floor. Don't cross your legs, just keep them straight on the floor. Your hands don't need to be doing anything special. You can put them on your knees. You can put them in your lap. If you're sitting on a cushion on the floor, you want to make sure you are able to form a base with your knees and your butt and the cushion. Again, your hands don't need to be doing anything special. You can put them in your lap. You can put them on your knees. So now that you're comfortable, take 3 good, deep in and out breaths. Close your eyes. Close your eyes for you. Your eyes are closed. We're going to breathe in and out through our nose. Breathe in and out. In and out. While you're sitting, I want you to experiment. Where do you feel the breath? Where is the breath easy to follow? Your 2 choices are the tip of the nose or the rising and falling of your belly. At the tip of the nose, when you breathe in, you can silently repeat in. When you breathe out, silently repeat out. In, out. In, out. For the rising and falling of your belly, when you breathe in, there's contraction, there's rising. And when you breathe out, there's falling, contraction. So rising, falling. So experiment with those 2 places. Where do you feel your breath? The rising and falling of your belly, the in and out at the tip of your nose. While you sit with your eyes closed, you won't be seeing anything. You may smell, you may hear, you may feel. And with any of those sensations that come up, all you need to do is label them. When you hear somebody open a door, close a door, you can just in your mind say sound. A sound is happening. Then go back to your breath. Go back to your meditation object. In and out. Rising, falling. The nature of the mind is to wander. So as you're sitting, you're going to have thoughts. You may be thinking about what you're going to do after this video. You may be thinking about what's for the next meal. What about tomorrow? In the same way that you labeled the senses, that sound, as sound, you can label those thoughts. Thinking about the past, you can label it past. It's going to come up, it's going to be there for a while, and then it's going to go. So there's this wave-like nature of these thoughts. They're going to crest, they're going to hit the shore, and they're going to go back to the ocean. You are going to have thoughts. The trick is not to get carried away with them, not to be brought out. So the breath is our anchor. The breath is going to keep us in the awareness of now, keep us in the present moment. So when you're thinking about next week, you're thinking about the beach, thinking about school, you're thinking about work, label it work. You can label it, you can put it away. But keep going back to your breath. Your breath is with you throughout your whole life. This is a way of honoring that. This is a way of getting attuned to your breath and your body and calming your mind down. You're slowing this down. Yes, you're going to have a lot of thoughts. Yes. Sometimes we call it the monkey mind. A monkey's always running around chasing something. So when your mind runs off and chases something, gently bring it back. You can label it. You can watch how it arises, how it exists, and how it ceases. Keep coming back to your breath, your anchor. In and out, rising and falling. Keep going back to your breath, your meditation object. In and out, rising and falling. Now when you hear the sound of the bell, you can come back. Open your eyes. You can give yourself some credit for your second meditation. This is something you can take with you anywhere. You need time to calm down. You need time to get back together with your body. So this was a very brief, basic introduction to Buddhism. If you're interested in more, you can check out Spartanburg Buddhist on Facebook. And you can also look and see for yourself. If you're interested, go and see for yourself. All the different kinds of Buddhism, all the different kinds of meditation. But you have to do it for yourself. If you want less stress, if you want relaxation, if you want insight, if you want knowledge, if you want enlightenment, whatever it is, the responsibility is yours. No one will do it for you. There can be a lot of guides along the way, and there can be a lot of useful things. But it's up to you. I say karma is action. Karma is intention. So what is your intention? What do you want to do with it? What do you want to do with your life? How do you want to improve? Do you want to improve? If you're perfect now, then there's no problem. But most of us are not. So we keep trying. And just like the meditation, we keep going back to the breath. We know the mind's going to run off. That's normal. But we're gentle with it, and we're forgiving, and we understand. And that's what we do. Keep going back. So, I offer that to you. I wish you well, and good luck.